Hello and welcome everyone. Just give us one moment while we turn our cameras on here, and we'll get started with today's episode of Cooking Connected. All right. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back. If this is your first time with us, welcome, and we're excited to have you joining us for this episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Sajwa, and joining me today is Jordan.
Hi, everyone.
And we've also got our volunteer chef joining us too, but believe he's just getting his cameras on at the moment.
Okay. What do I need to do?
Oh,
there we go.
Start video. There you are. All right. So both Jordan and I work with Cooking Matters, the Cooking Matters Minnesota program with the University of Minnesota Extension. And like I said, we've got one of our lovely volunteers here today, Jeff. So normally a Cooking Matters class is a 6-week nutrition-based cooking class, and we meet once a week for 2 hours. Classes usually feature a nutrition educator and a chef, and they work together to teach our participants about nutrition and how to make a healthy, delicious, and affordable meal. So today, Jordan will be our nutrition educator, and Jeff will be our chef. So following that same format, today we're going to be making a really great, quick, and easy recipe. Also cost effective, I'd like to note. We're going to be doing the red bean and sweet potato chili. But before I hand the mic off to Jordan and Jeff, I am going to just put our survey details up. I know we do this every week, you guys, but we really appreciate you taking these surveys for us. It helps us continue to do this kind of work and improve as we go. So today's program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected is going to be E100631. And again, that's our program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected, the red bean and sweet potato chili. I will have the link to that survey as well as the program code in the live chat and in the description box of this video. All right, guys, take it away.
Awesome. Before Jeff gets started with today's recipe, I just want to welcome the U of M Council of Graduate Students who are joining us today. So we are so happy you're joining us today. I hope you enjoy today's recipe. And like I said, I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff to get started with today's recipe.
All right, everybody, thank you for being here. Today we're doing the sweet potato and red bean chili. I'm going to be preparing this in a wok. It's electric wok. So I've got it kind of warming up right now. We want to get the heat up to about medium high. Get that hot, and then we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm using canola oil. Let that warm up a little bit. Spread it around. We want to get the oil hot before we're going to add the onions, and we're going to add got these onions right here, and some sweet potatoes. All right.
So it looks like we diced those up kind of small, correct?
Yes, we did. Yeah, they're about size of a dice is what they're. So I'm going to add these onions, a little bit of sizzle.
And of course, if you don't have a wok at home, you can make this on the stovetop as well. But it looks like the wok is a great option as well.
Yes, yeah, you can do this in a sauce pot, definitely. So there's our sweet potatoes. Actually, they're yams. Americans call them sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Went to the sweet potato website, and they said that yams are sweet potatoes. But scientists say that there's 2 different things, 2 different plants.
Oh.
Yams are the lilies, and sweet potatoes are from their nightshade family.
Now, we were just talking a little bit earlier before we got started today, and apparently you can eat the yams before they're cooked. Jeff said they taste like candy, so maybe if you are eating yams, you can just have a bite as a treat.
Delicious. Nice, crispy, sweet.
It looks like today's recipe doesn't include any meat products or any animal products, correct? So it is vegan and vegetarian.
I don't know if you can see this, but we left the skin on the sweet potato. I like the skin myself. On sweet potato jams or, regular baked potatoes, red potatoes, I like the skin.
Absolutely. And it's a lot less work to have to not peel your potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you do
for about 4 minutes.
Yeah. If you do use, if you do decide to peel your sweet potatoes, or your potatoes in general, you can actually save potato peels if you'd like for, what do you think you could use potato peels in like a vegetable broth, Jeff?
Well, potato peels, what they will do is cloud up your broth.
Okay.
So if that doesn't bother you, then yes, you can.
Okay.
But otherwise, if you want a nice clear broth, you don't want to do it. You don't want to add potatoes to the broth.
Okay. So, that's up to you.
Speaking of the broth, I did actually add some sweet potato peels to my broth. It did cloud it up, but it also turned it into kind of an orangey color, which was fun.
That's true, yeah.
But hey, nothing wrong with a little extra nutrients in that peel. So
There you go. And we'll just let this cook for a few minutes, correct, Jeff?
About another minute. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we are ready to go. So I'm going to go to the next step.
Okay.
I'm going to add some garlic. I have some finely minced garlic right here. Stir that in. And I have some chili powder, a tablespoon and a half, mixed with 2 teaspoons of cumin.
Is there any other seasonings that you'd recommend adding, or are those pretty much what you'd want to add?
Well, actually, good question. You can add paprika. You can add Mexican oregano or just regular Italian oregano as well. And different, let me see what else. Cayenne pepper.
Sure. A little bit of spice.
Or smoked paprikas. Anything like that. Anything with heat in it if you like heat.
Absolutely. Yeah. So recipes, of course, are guidelines. So if you have any of those other seasonings, feel free to add those as well.
So now I'm adding these tomatoes, 1 can of tomatoes, and I kept the juice in there. I'm gonna stir this around briefly. I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of water. I like cooking the spices in with the vegetables before I add any liquids. This helps kind to bring out the flavors, the aromas inside the cumin and the the chili powder. So I'm going to bring this to a boil and then cover it and let it simmer for about 10 minutes.
Perfect. Well, while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of nutrition education. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about different eating patterns. So there are tons of, healthy eating patterns out there. It's really important to find one that works best for you and your lifestyle. Today, we're going to focus primarily on a vegetarian diet and a vegan diet. So a vegetarian diet, as someone who follows a vegetarian diet, is someone who doesn't eat meat, poultry, or fish. There are different types of vegetarian diets. So there's a lacto-ovo vegetarian. If person following this eating pattern does not eat, or they eat both eggs and dairy, excuse me. A lacto-vegetarian eats dairy but not eggs, and then an ovo-vegetarian eats eggs but not dairy. So a few different variations of that eating pattern. There's also vegan. So someone who follows a vegan eating pattern, they don't eat the meat, poultry, fish. They also don't eat dairy products, eggs, or other animal products. So thinking specifically like honey or gelatin. If you follow these diets and have a healthy eating pattern when you're on these diets, there are some benefits to doing this. There's some heart protective benefits, as well as it may reduce your risk of certain cancers. It may reduce your risk of diabetes, and it may also lower your risk of your blood pressure as well. So if you follow these diets and you want these amazing health benefits, it's really important to remember that food choices still matter. So we have to still continue to make healthy food choices when we're on this diet. You're avoiding meat and dairy products, but you're eating a lot of processed sugary foods, you probably won't get the same health benefits if you're not eating a lot of those fruits and vegetables. These diets also take a little bit of planning as well. So thinking about your diet, you may want to think about different substitutes, especially when you're transitioning into you're newly transitioning into a vegetarian or vegan diet. Thinking about substitutions that will work for you. So for instance, for meat, there's a lot of different meat replacements that can offer the protein that you need for your diet. So for instance, like tofu or tempeh are great options for meat substitutions. You can also use beans and lentils as a substitution as well. For cheeses, they do offer like a cashew or a soy cheese. There's also something called nutritional yeast that you can use for a cheese replacement. For different stocks and broths, you can use a vegetable stock or vegetable broth. For milks, of course, there's soy, almond, coconut, rice milk. There's tons of different options for that. And finally, eggs, I'm thinking primarily for baking purposes. A lot of recipes offer substitutions for like a mashed banana that you can use in your baking, applesauce. There is also a way to kind of make an egg with like ground flaxseed and chia seed. You add a tablespoon of the ground flaxseed or chia seed to about 3 tablespoons of warm water to kind of create an egg for your baking purposes. So a lot of different options. Something else that you may want to think about when you're planning these diets is My Plate. So even though you're, let's see here, let me share my screen so we can see My Plate. So My Plate, it kind of explains a healthy eating pattern in all the proportions of the 5 different food groups that we should be eating from every meal. So of course, we've got our fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, and dairy. We should be eating from all 5 food groups at every meal. And when you're planning a vegetarian or vegan diet, you can still think about My Plate. So you have a nice balanced diet and you're getting all of the nutrients that you need from these different food groups. So of course, fruits and vegetables is something to think about, and grains as well. But the protein is something that you may want to think about if you're on a vegetarian or vegan diet. Maybe one time you use tofu or tempeh. So just continue to think about My Plate when you're planning your meals as a vegetarian or as a vegan. You still want to have protein in your diet, of course, just an alternative protein. As well as different, not necessarily dairy options, but maybe a glass of almond milk, which offers the vitamin D and calcium that we really need and that we get from dairy, but we can get from other sources as well. So you can continue to think about My Plate when you're planning a vegetarian or vegan diet, and this just kind of makes it a little bit simpler, maybe a little less anxiety around planning meals. The last thing that I wanted to mention is transitioning into a vegetarian or vegan diet. If that's something that's important to you, you can actually gradually transition into a vegetarian or vegan diet. Sometimes if you do everything all at once, it can be a little overwhelming. So you can actually take one thing at a time and just replace one thing at a time until eventually you are on the vegan diet that's important to you, or you're on the vegetarian diet that's important to you. So maybe you do enjoy burgers, but you don't want to eat meat any longer. They do offer, burger substitutions. So that's something to think about. Maybe just doing one replacement at a time and just gradually, doing those replacements. And of course, as I said, there are many different types of healthy eating patterns. These are just 2, so it's really important to find the one that works best for you. But there are lots of different tips and recipes out there if you are interested in transitioning to a vegan or vegetarian diet. We've even had a couple recipes on Cooking Connected that are vegetarian or vegan. So you can feel free to check out our YouTube page for more recipes. I believe we've made veggie nuggets before. So those were vegetarian options. And we have a few vegan options as well. Today's recipe is both vegan and vegetarian. Thinking about all the things that are in there, we've got our protein from our beans today. We've got some beautiful potatoes. We've got lots of different options, and we're covering most of my plate except for grains and let's see here, our fruits and our dairy. So maybe when we're thinking about having this meal, maybe we serve our chili over a bed of rice and have it with a glass of almond milk and a side of fruit. And that way we would be getting all of our my plate from our 5 groups. Awesome. How's it looking over there, Jeff?
Great. They're kind of almost there.
Perfect. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions and a comment here. So one question I have, do you guys have any tips for, possibly making this if I was in limited space, maybe without stove access as a student or something? Any ways I can continue to make this recipe?
Do you have any ideas, Jeff?
Well, I'm kind of limited on space. I've got a small kitchen. Of course, I could have used the stove, yes. That's why I'm using this electric. But I'm using this electric pan because it makes it more convenient. I suppose, if you had a microwave, you'd have to cook everything one at a time. The sweet potatoes, you have to look at instructions for your microwave on how to cook sweet potato. I really don't know how limited you are.
Yeah. So of course it depends on the things you have access to, but maybe perhaps you can make it in the microwave, as Jeff was saying, cooking it one ingredient at a time and then mixing it together.
Okay, great. And then also we've got a comment here. One of our viewers says that they've used smoked paprika and cinnamon. Maybe that would work really well. They say it really helps with cutting out the salt and saves money if you're buying it in bulk. So there's just a little tip from one of our viewers here.
Absolutely. That is such a great point. It's always good to remember that we can season our foods in different ways besides just using salt. So using all of these different seasonings, the ones that Jeff was saying earlier, is a really great option to season our foods and really decrease on the salt. Of course, you can always buy, seasonings in bulk if you go through them a lot. Some stores also offer seasonings in bags, which are more reasonable options. Sometimes when you buy seasonings in those containers, they can get really expensive really fast. But you can also buy the seasonings in bulk and fill your own containers. A lot of stores offer reusable containers as well. Great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Since, we're thinking about a vegetarian chili here in America.
Yeah.
You were talking about other ingredients, other spices as well. You mentioned coconut milk. I thought, wow, that would be really good with this.
Yeah, love that.
Adding ginger to it as well. That would be the bomb. That would be so good.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. So maybe there's another way we can get our full my plate in, is adding a can of coconut milk in with this. I think that would be phenomenal. Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and add these beans now. Just rinse them off, stir them around, cook them for a little bit, for about 3 to 5 minutes until they're heated up thoroughly. We're almost finished with this.
Perfect. And of course, Jeff did say to rinse off those beans. That's really important when you get canned beans. Sometimes you can buy like a reduced sodium option, which of course we always recommend. But if you don't have access to like the reduced sodium option, you can buy the full sodium options and rinse them off. That way you're getting rid of some of that salt, but also cans of beans kind of come in like a cloudy water. So you kind of want to rinse that off too. Awesome. That looks awesome.
It's beautiful colors.
Absolutely.
I'm going to add just a little bit of salt and pepper. think this is ready to go. Stir it around.
And honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of recipes with sweet potatoes and chili with sweet potatoes. So this is a little bit new for me. I'm excited to try this one.
And I said earlier that added, I was going with the recipe, 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder and 2 teaspoons of cumin, but please, adjust it to your taste. You're the chef making this. If you want more, add more to it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's a great point that Jeff brings up. I believe we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but recipes are guidelines. So add the seasonings that you enjoy and your family enjoys. Some ingredients maybe you don't have on hand, so you can make substitutions. Maybe you don't have red kidney beans on hand. Perhaps you can use a different bean that you have on hand. But of course, recipes are guidelines, so adjust them to your needs and your tastes.
If you wanted to, you could always use, instead of using water, you can use a broth, a vegetable broth, maybe if you want to, or a chicken broth, or even beef broth, but we're trying to keep vegetarians down. So this is, you can always add more flavor by adding more vegetable broth to this.
That's a great tip.
And if you want to, you can also add some cornstarch to this to thicken it up. If you like it thick, this is kind of more, kind of a soupy one. I'm sure it's still going to be quite delicious. I'm going to add top of this yogurt, some Greek yogurt.
Yeah. So as Jeff's garnishing, he is using Greek yogurt today for a sour cream substitute. Of course, if you are, there are some other alternative options if you are following a vegan diet, finding a plain like soy yogurt or something like that. And that is a great substitute for sour cream. It adds a little bit more protein and it's a lot less calories. So I encourage you to try a sour cream substitute. It looks like we're adding some avocados as well.
Some avocados, some diced up avocados. These are some radishes. Add some nice freshness. Along with some cilantro.
Talk about presentation.
Right.
Professional.
Yeah, so radishes look so beautiful. Yeah, and adding all of these other ingredients as well. We're adding a lot more vegetables. I love the radishes though. That is really cool.
What I also like to do is give it a squeeze of fresh lime juice as well.
I'm sure.
Squeeze all over it. It just makes it really nice and fresh tasting, like the cilantro does. It's going to make it nice and fresh tasting, along with the radishes. It's just going to bring so much excitement to your mouth.
Absolutely.
I'm going to actually pin that video so we can get a close up of that. Oh, look at that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeff, for that demonstration. It looks absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
Awesome. And of course, again, we'd like to thank the University Council of Graduate Students for joining us. We hope that you guys enjoy this recipe when you're making it at home for your family.
All righty. So everybody, again, thank you, Jeff, for, oh, he's going to give us a taste. Let's see what There you go. It tastes as good as it looks, huh?
That lime juice and the cilantro at the top. Wow.
Brings it all together.
Sometimes all you need is a little acid to just bring it together like that. Yep. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for doing this lovely demonstration for us and showing us, some different variations. We really appreciate that expertise that you have there being a chef. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Give us your feedback as you try this recipe. Let us know what worked, what didn't work. Did you try that coconut milk? Are you going to add that ginger? Share your comments and posts with us at Cooking Matters Minnesota on Facebook. You can certainly do that. And before we let you go, we are going to give you the program code for that survey again. And again, this survey link is listed in the description box of the video, and it's in the live chat along with the program code. So the program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected is going to be E100631. And again, that's our program code. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate all the comments and interactions today. The chat has just been bubbling. I'm going to have to catch up with all the notes and respond to all of you guys. Thank you again to the University of Minnesota Council of Graduate Students for joining us. Let us know how the recipe went for you guys. And we just really appreciate you joining us and cooking with us. So with that, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.